The Orlando Magic were shorthanded against the Milwaukee Bucks tonight, but who cares? I know I don't because this still goes down as a really impressive win for the Bucks. We'll count the ways on the other side of this intro.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What it do? Welcome to Locked On Bucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Camille Davis, and joining me is Frank Madden, founder of BrewHoop.com and longtime voice of the pod. We appreciate you for tuning in and making Locked On Bucks your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, as well as on YouTube and in newsletter form. Make sure you head over to LockedOnDaily.com and sign up for the one-stop shop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered straight to your inbox. And also, from that first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Frank, I mentioned in the intro here, this was an impressive win. Like, the Bucks have now won 5 of their last 6. This was a 29-point win on the second night of a back-to-back. I don't really care that the Magic didn't have Franz or Mo Wagner. I don't care they didn't have Jalen Suggs. I don't care that Goga wasn't there. Gary, I don't care, because two reasons in particular. And you can tell me if I'm tripping or not. But the first one is just seeing the Bucks offense get off to another fast start. Second consecutive game, back-to-back. We know offense has been a bit of an issue for them. And despite some guys missing, this is still a good defensive Orlando Magic team. In addition to that, with this win, the Bucks are now 3-0 against the Magic in that season series. They have the tiebreaker over them with one more game to play. And this could prove to be really important with how the East is shaking out. We've seen that the Bucks have struggled against those top 3 teams in the East. But if they can keep a steady diet of wins over those teams below them, will help in the standings overall, as well as in seeding if, things get shaky towards the end of the season. So am I tripping when I say it's an impressive win for the Bucks, or do you feel it where I'm coming from?
No, I mean, especially, to do it twice in 24 hours, right? To, have super strong starts. Last night, Justin and I talked about, the starting 5 was a negative going into this game, right? Like they've been outscored on the season, which I think is indicative of the fact that the Bucks just have not been a team that tends to get off to really strong starts.
Yeah.
Unlike last year, very different, where the starting 5 was just a machine, and the bench was like, you just sort of like prayed that the bench could not give it all back. This year they've, I think, shown their depth and the ability to make up for kind of the mediocrity of the starting groups with really strong play in second quarters and from bench groups. So refreshing to wasn't the 47-point explosion that we saw against the Kings, but that's okay.
Yeah.
34-16, I think it was in the first quarter tonight, I want to say. And it's kind of funny. I mean, in each of the 3 games we've seen against the Magic, they've been missing at least 1 or 2 of the key guys. I think actually they've missed, I want to say, 2 guys in all of the in each of these games, right? Yeah. Suggs played in the first game and was like shockingly like amazing offensively and defensively when they kind of took the Bucks as far as they kind of could in that first game in Milwaukee without Paolo or Franz. And then Paolo obviously comes back last Friday, but no Suggs. And it's kind of similar story, same story tonight. And those first 2 games, I mean, it's kind of joking with some people how it's like, it just feels like, the Lakeland Magic or whatever their G League team is called. Like if it says Magic across the front, like they're going to give you a dogfight, and Jamal Mosley, Milwaukee native, is going to make sure that that those guys are ready to play. But like on paper, like this is the result that you kind of like would expect, right? If you didn't know that the Magic, had the record that they did with all the injuries, if before the season you just said, hey, Camille, this is the lineup that the Bucks are going to be facing. Bucks at relative full strength, no Gary Trent, but Khris Middleton was back tonight. But this is who they're going to be going up against on the Magic side with all these injuries. You'd be like, oh, Bucks really
better
should
win
win.
big.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not 30 points big, but like that should be, a comfortable double-digit win. And but you got to go out and do it, right? And this Magic team, they've been a team that does not beat themselves. That's kind of the thing they've showed sort of throughout this season. And so, I think to the Bucks had their second best defensive rating tonight of the season. Only game that was better was, you may remember that, I think it was the first NBA Cup game against the Raptors at home, which was 99-85. That's still the best, at least outside of the NBA Cup game, which is like its whole
Doesn't
separate
count.
beast. But as far as regular season games go, that tonight was actually their second best defensive rating, which, like, I guess I don't know how impressive it is. Like, I mean, the Bucks kind of did their work, but you kind of look at who the Magic had out there, and it's just like, yeah, like that feels about right. And they shot almost, I think a little shade above 25% from three. But it is also kind of funny. Look at the box score. Very strange
Such a
box
weird
score.
game.
If you had told us before this game, all that stuff I just said, notwithstanding about just who was available, but if you only knew that the Magic would hit 5 more threes and turn the ball over 8 fewer times than the Bucks in this game, you'd be like, "Oh crap, the Bucks found a way to lose this game, didn't they?"
Yep.
No, not to be concerned. Bucks take an NBA season low 12 threes, make 7 of them. I think Dame was 3 for 3, which is that's a crazy stat in the sense that Dame would ever take only 3 threes and that he would make all of them. Like, if he was making threes, you think he'll take 10, 12, whatever it might be. But yeah,
like
the
he didn't
Bucks
take his second or third three until the fourth quarter.
Yeah, he took 2 of them, I think, in the fourth
In the
quarter, I
fourth,
want to
yeah.
say. AJ Green had as many threes attempted by himself last night as the entire Bucks team had combined tonight, which I don't even know what to make of it. Because honestly, Camille, like, I didn't even really notice that they weren't taking threes because they were like getting good shots and not really having a whole lot of problems scoring. So, it didn't feel like there was ever any desperation. And, Khris Middleton was getting to his mid-range spots, and Giannis was getting kind of his 11 out of 15. He was efficient scoring as well. You mentioned Dame. He had his 30. So yeah, just I'm just all for these drama-free games, Camille. I feel like we've had not nearly enough drama-free games, and to get back-to-back drama-free games against teams that the Kings having been on a hot streak and the Magic being like a super frisky, plucky team that has given you a lot of problems and who you just had to, kind of scratch and claw to beat a few days ago. I will happily take these and bank them, and love to see my plus minus stats juiced a little bit, Camille. The expected win percentage growing significantly over the last 24 hours. So yeah, it was all smiles on the bench, some funny stuff with Giannis, Dame, and Khris.
I love that.
And I think we can all, like, let's put our championship contention anxiety to the side for today and just sort of say, hey, they showed up 2 straight days and there was no letdown, and that's progress for the Milwaukee Bucks, at least the 24-25 version.
It is. It's something to enjoy. Just enjoy it tonight. You mentioned that you didn't quite notice the Bucks weren't taking enough threes. I had a prize picks on Brook Lopez threes. I was paying attention tonight, Frank. Attention. The Magic did do a really good job, though, of just running.
1. Just 0 for 1 from 3 for Brook. Sorry, Camille.
Yeah,
5 blocks, though. 5 blocks.
Yeah, the blocks were impressive. Brook had a good game, just not for my prize picks, but the Magic did a good job of running the Bucks off the 3-point line. And I think seeing Brook have some of those actions where when he is run off the line, these really slow, lumbering drives to the basket that he has, I like seeing him be able to generate points in that situation. So even though it was a weird game offensively for the Bucks in the sense that they only took 12 threes, seeing them continue to find ways to create, seeing them not force it, not seeing them like get panicked or anything, but just continuously get the best shot that they could. I enjoyed seeing their offense clicking that way. Like during the second quarter, the Magic cut that lead down to like 13 or so. And I'm watching it like, oh, is this going to happen in this game where now it's going to go back into the Magic's favor? But I was like, if they can get that lead back up to like 20 heading into halftime, I'll be very comfortable with how the second half goes. And they did that, even though they had like a 4-minute scoring drought. But they closed that second quarter on a little run behind buckets from Khris that Dame assisted, Giannis bucket, and then the Dame bucket that Khris assisted on. And again, the Bucks tend to go as Giannis and as Dame see it fit. So I want to talk a bit more about what we saw from those two, Khris Middleton, but in particular, Damian Lillard, because he had himself a game tonight against the Magic. So more on that after this. From that first whistle to that final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and then you will get $300 in bonus bets if you can win that first bet. That's $300, y'all, to keep the action going. You can't beat that. A free three? Come on now. The FanDuel app is also easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every single game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings. The everydayers know. I don't play about my money. When I want it now. Like them commercials, it's my money and I want it now. Every time when I bet, that's how my money. And FanDuel does not make you wait. Just visit fanduel.com to join today and get started with that $300 in bonus bets if you win that first bet. That's fanduel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. I also want to talk to you a bit about Skims because listen, Skims was a game changer for the underwear game since they debuted. Originally, it was something just for the ladies, but Skims has also launched a men's line. And if the men's line is anywhere near as comfortable as that woman's line is, you're going to be in for a treat. So, fella, Skims has you covered with various styles for whatever suits you best, whether that's cotton or stretch boxer briefs or cotton or stretch briefs, whatever it is, Skims has you covered. Shop Skims Men's at skims.com/lockedonnba and at Skims stores. Let them know, though, that we sent you. So after you place your order, select podcast in the survey, then select our show in that drop-down menu that follows. Dame and Giannis. Dame in particular, I want to start with in this game because he was fantastic. I felt like Dame was really able to surprise defenders continuously with his speed tonight, and not even just off the dribble, but with his decision making and the pace that he played at. He had that beautiful highlight where he made KCP touch the ground on that step back mid range shot. He took KCP off the dribble a few times. Then he hit that big dagger long three in the first from that Fiserv Forum logo. And that shot in particular was one of the ones where I was like, that's the quick decision making because Paolo Banchero did not expect Dame to shoot that. Dame saw that sliver of space and put that shot up. His only three of the first half, but the offensive game just flowed for Dame. He was really efficient tonight. And I thought he had really active hands defensively as well in this game. And we've seen in games when Dame plays with a good defensive energy as well, it can change the formula a little bit for the Bucks and the team defense concept.
Yeah, I mean, on Friday, the Bucks, and again, you saw tonight, the Bucks put Giannis on Paolo to start the game, but pretty much anytime it was Giannis on Paolo, it turned into a pick and roll action. Like they were determined to not have Paolo attacking Giannis one-on-one. And, on Friday, the actions they were, especially in the fourth quarter, like it was just repeatedly putting Dame into those actions. And
it's been a while since we had a Frank freeze frame on the pod with the internet. It has been a while. This is a throwback. This is vintage Locked On Bucks with the internet cutting out a little bit on Frank. But I think he was starting to get into what he was seeing from Dame on his end. I mentioned, are you back now, Frank?
I'm back.
Okay,
Sorry.
cool.
The screen started to swirl. Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, I think we've seen a lot of, I think, good effort from Dame. I think, in the Friday game, they were attacking him down the stretch like every time with Paolo and trying to get him in switches and things like that. And, I think they exploited just the fact that he's too small basically. But I agree with you. I mean, I think, and it's been an interesting season. I mean, I think it hasn't necessarily always been consistent, but I think we have seen a lot of stretches where Dame's, effort and, like his ability to use his hands and get pokeaways and steals, thinking, I think, what was it? I want to say the Hawks semifinal of the NBA Cup where he had the big steal, at the end that kind of clinched it. So again, I'm not going to call him a defensive playmaker. But yeah, I mean, when, he's engaged and, he's not a guy, I don't look at Dame as a guy that like is just like, Jabari Parker type of like just brain shutting off, whatever. Like
when it comes to that
again,
side of the ball,
yeah. I mean, I'm not saying like his effort is always like 100%. He's a superstar. He expends a lot of effort on offense, but yeah, I mean, I think we've seen, especially in the right matchups, like, he's not just like always a defensive pushover. And, there are games where he is a plus actually. And, So it was fun to see him, kind of showing more of that today in a game where, I don't know that they really needed to necessarily put in like 110% grade A defensive effort the whole time, because you just didn't feel like the Magic were going to be able to score points
Right.
consistently. But yeah, good on Dame. It was his hat night. It was his Dame designed hat giveaway night. So, he had to bring it, right,
He
Camille? I
did.
mean, it's your hat night. He had to be able to get in that post game interview wearing the hat, talking about, putting up 30 and playing two ways. So kudos to Dame. And again, I mean, after the game last night, Dame and Giannis
Hmm.
said a lot about like, they need to be in, it's on them to be leaders and like make sure there's not like letdowns and things like that. And I they say the right things to me. When I read that, I was just kind of like, all right, guys,
Let me
chatter,
see it.
chatter, chatter, talk, 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 Um, so much more important than the talk was, I think, what we saw on the floor tonight,
Mhm.
blowing a team out, a competitive team, blowing them out 2 nights in a row. And for the Bucks on a back-to-back, I think the Magic had a couple days off, so I mean they were rested even if they were dinged up and missing key guys. So yeah, I mean, now go this weekend and beat the really bad Raptors and
Yeah.
Sixers, please. Like don't let up now, because if you have a bad week, you could go from fourth to seventh in the East, just given how congested the standings are.
You surely are. And one thing I noticed in this game, we heard, I think it was Dame after the last game mentioning, like, with the whistles, we have to do a better job too of just getting back. If we don't get the call, get back on defense. Don't sweat it. Don't put our teammates in a bad position where they have to play 4-on-5 because we're complaining to the refs. And this was a game where I was really glad not to see Dame or Giannis letting that ref whistle get them out of their game, because there were a few times where Dame's going for a layup, there's contact, no whistle. Giannis getting pushed out of bounds on the baseline, no
Yeah.
foul, turnovers. He getting hit on his hands, no
Yeah, there were.
foul.
I'm glad you bring that up, because there were like two or three plays in like a span of like
A
90
stretch.
seconds where it was just like, how they're just like hacking and pushing and like,
Yes.
give the dude a whistle, man. Come on.
And on that note, too, I need the NBA to really start calling guys when they're just pushing Giannis in the back. Like, I
Yeah,
know
he had
he's
that
big, I
layup
know
where
he's
he got
strong, but
pushed in
like,
the back.
stop.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
have to stop that. So I was really impressed too, seeing the two of them not let that take them out their game, especially during that stretch, and continue to play. And Giannis, another really efficient game for him, 11 to 15 from the field, 26 points, 50% from the free throw line. But
Hmm.
sadly enough, that's better than some of the efforts we've seen recently from the free throw line. But overall, I thought a pretty good offensive night from Giannis as well, and defensively setting the tone.
Yeah, I mean the one play where I think I remember was like where Khris kind of looked off Wendell Carter and flipped it to Giannis for a layup, and he got pushed in the back, no call,
Hmm.
as he did finish the layup. Um, but yeah, I mean, man, the Khris Giannis connection again.
It's
Like, I mean,
beautiful.
we've
It's
seen it
beautiful.
for 11 years or whatever it is. They just had, I don't know how many plays tonight where they just made it look so easy, right? I thought that one where the Magic went to the zone in the second half and Khris just got it in the corner. He just
It's
immediately
a
fired
lot.
it, and Giannis is running down the middle, and it's just like, nobody there. It's just like I guess that's not a hard pass, but like it seems like Khris is always the one to throw that pass.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, it's just so fun watching them together. I was looking up the stats. We've talked a lot about the Bucks offense being mediocre. Khris and Giannis together have a 122 offensive rating this year.
Man.
And the funny part is when you take Dame off the floor, so when it's just Khris and Giannis, like bench, them kind of
Mhm.
running the thing. And again, this is all very small sample because obviously Khris hasn't been back so far, but a 144
Oh my god.
144 offensive rating for Giannis and Khris when they're together on the floor without Dame as well. And again, that's not a shot at Dame. But yeah, it's just like again, let's just manage. If we need to see Khris's minutes get managed,
Mhm.
hold him out of the first night of back to back, like that's fine, right? It's only the second game yesterday that Khris has missed since he came back. So, you know, again, as much as certainly I think there's reason for concern about just sort of the lingering tendonitis and,
Yeah.
kind of him getting to where he needs to be. Um, he put up what 16 points on 9 shots
Efficient night.
against
Yep.
against the Knicks. I think he was the only guy who wasn't a negative plus minus. and then sits out last night and then comes back tonight and 5 out of 8, 14 points, 6 assists, no turnovers, plus 19 in 21 minutes. I mean, that'll do, right? I mean, obviously we want to see him get back to the point where he can play 30,
30 minutes or so.
33
Yeah.
minutes, in the regular season. But kind of hard to complain when we see him kind of have these sorts of just really efficient nights. So hopefully that just kind of continues, and hopefully we just see we don't have just like the random cardio games, right? Where
Right.
2 points and just you just don't notice him. But he also, I think played well, put up solid numbers in the Friday game as well against Orlando. So, he's had a pretty good stretch here of late. And again, it's just about kind of stacking it and, hoping he just gets more comfortable and physically gets to kind of a progressively better place. So, yeah, fun, always fun to watch Giannis and Khris kind of just do their thing together. And yeah, it just feels like 20 years from now they'll be retired, and I feel like you could roll the ball out and
Still do it.
they can make magic work in a pick and roll.
Absolutely. And the thing with Khris too, coming off of the bench, it's like you're still seeing him get a good amount of minutes with Dame, with Giannis, with Brooke on the court. But what's cool about him coming off the bench at this juncture while he still has that minutes restriction is just being able to see him in those, Giannis pairs where it's just the two of them on the floor, as well as just seeing some different lineups, seeing him be able to have the ball in his hand, being able to dictate the game at his pace, at his speed, as he continues to get back on his feet, no pun intended, from the injury and the rehab there. So love seeing that from Khris, but did not love seeing one of the Bucks get injured during this game. So I want to talk a bit about how that injury might affect the Bucks rotation. We have no idea at this moment in time how long that injury might linger for a guy who's been a pretty key member of this Bucks team since he was inserted into the starting lineup. So we'll talk a bit about that after this. With Robinhood Gold, you can now enjoy the VIP treatment, receiving a 3% IRA match on retirement contributions. The privileges of the privileged are no longer exclusive. With Robinhood Gold, your annual IRA contributions are boosted by 3%, plus you also get 4% APY on your cash and non-retirement accounts. That's over 8 times the national savings average. The perks of the high net worth are now available for any net worth. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. To receive your 3% boost on annual IRA contributions, sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Investing does require risk. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold at $5 per month for 1 year from first match. Must keep funds in IRA for 5 years. Go to robinhood.com/boost. Over 8 times the national average savings account interest rate claim is based on data from the FDIC as of November 18, 2024. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. All right, Frank, as we close here, I mentioned that a Bucks player got injured. Andre Jackson Jr. kind of got hip checked a little bit on a pick and roll play. And I could tell that it hurt because when he got hit, he reacted immediately. I laughed a little bit to myself because he reminded me of like that alien in Men in Black when he's just kind of like bending over all around a couple of different places. But hopefully it's not a serious injury for Andre Jackson Jr. He was having a really good first half in this game. He played 15 minutes in the first half of this game, and he's been averaging only a little over 13 minutes a game so far this month. So he was playing pretty good in the first half of this game, did not return after that injury. And a question that I have for you, although I think I know your answer, if Andre Jackson is out for a little while here with this injury, who would you like to see more of in the rotation to replace his minutes in his role? Oh, you're muted.
I kind of feel I feel weirdly responsible for Andre getting hurt because last night I polled Twitter, who should be the 5th starter, and AJ Green got a little over 50% of the vote, and I did not state my opinion in the poll itself. I wanted to put it out there and then provide my thoughts afterwards so that I wasn't kind of biasing things. I was curious to sort of what people were generally thinking. Yeah, I mean, I think the very easy answer is AJ Green. And I think when I think about lineups and pairings and things like that, there's kind of three ways I think about it. I think first off, does it logically make sense to put this player with these other guys, right? Is there like some redundancy or positional overlap or like skill set issue that you see, right? Which obviously with Andre, like the thing is always like, yeah, to me, like it's like especially Andre plus Giannis, right? Like,
Yeah.
does the floor
Spacing.
compression, spacing problems that come with playing Andre, given just his limitations as an offensive player in general, like does that, you know, how much of that is a reason for some of the issues we've seen for the Bucks offense? It is not the full explanation because they have not like magically become this great offense when he's off on the
Right.
bench. So this is not like fully an Andre problem. But yeah, I mean, starting obviously a guy who doesn't really do much offensively and isn't really a threat offensively, like it's not going to help your it's not going to help your offense. Um, so my kind of like continual thing is like, okay, so like is there a logical like well logically who makes sense with that group, right? And I think you can make cases for Andre, like the defensive
Yeah.
energy, like designated defensive stopper guy. um I think AJ is sort of the other obvious guy just because he's such a gravitational guy from a
Mhm.
shooting perspective, the reverse of the Andre problem in terms of offense. And then of course defense, he's held up well enough, has been surprisingly switchable just given he's
Mhm.
pretty sturdy from the perspective. He's not like tall or long, but he's not tiny and he's pretty strong too. So like he's good enough there, I think. And then I think Gary Trent and Ryan Rollins, I think, are also at least like worth a shout. I think there's at least arguments for those guys. They bring slightly different things than the others. So I think all four of those guys, have a case. But in the poll, AJ was 50%. I think Andre was like 20s, high 20s, something like that. Like he
Mhm.
was sort of in second place, and the other guys were a bit further down. So I think AJ passes sort of like the smell test. Like, does it make sense? And then I think like the other two pieces are like the eye test, right? Does
Right.
it seem like those guys play well together? And I think AJ, I think very much like I think AJ and Giannis, I think play really well off each other. I mean, I don't think there's anybody like AJ plays poorly with, right? Like a
Mhm.
just
Skill
nuclear
set
like
versatile enough
shooter.
where it
Yeah,
doesn't. Yeah.
exactly. Like a nuclear shooter type is gonna play well with others typically. And then the last piece is like, what does the data tell us, right? And
Mhm.
I'm obviously a big like numbers guy, but I'm also like very wary of using, well, in like 86 possessions, like this group's been
Yeah.
incredible. It's like, okay, well,
Sample size matters.
exactly. And a lot of it's in those small samples is going to be driven by like 3-point variance for yourself and the other
Mhm.
team. So um, for AJ, like AJ's the like prime example of like his data on the metrics are fantastic. We've talked about some of the kind of underwhelming Giannis Dame stats. You
Mhm.
throw AJ in there, they've been just bonkers good offense and defense. And again, a lot of it is because there's a pretty decent like shooting delta. Bucks have shot like 40%, opponents have shot like 30%, but they're like plus 20 something net rating. So yeah, I mean it all sort of checks out. And I think so. So when he started, he started the second half of this game,
Mhm.
and I mean, not that I don't think gathered any meaningful data in that. But it's funny because you look at AJ, 0 for 3, 2 points tonight, right? Like probably about as anonymous of a shooting game as he's gonna have. He only took 1 3 in 17 minutes, which
Yeah.
seems insane. How could that have happened? And yet you look at it, he's a plus 24. Ajax was a +2 in 15 minutes. We mentioned last night he was the only negative among the starters last night. Tonight he's the lowest plus minus guy of the
Mhm.
kind of main rotation guys. And meanwhile AJ is like plus 24, and AJ's the right now the kind of the leader on the team in net kind of on off rating, which again like I think is a credit to him, and the data can swing pretty easily.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think it makes a lot of sense. And again, I it's like in the playoffs, are you going to play AJ Green and especially if Khris comes back, are you going to play AJ and Khris given that you don't have like what you feel like is like that real like versatile defensive stopper type?
Mhm.
I get the hesitation, right? I mean, maybe I am racially profiling AJ Green, Camille, the way that I always criticize opposing players for thinking they can go at AJ because of the way he looks.
Mhm.
But look, I mean, as much as AJ, I think, has been a really pleasant surprise, and there was a ton of credit for the way he has, committed defensively, and again, the surprising versatility he's shown. Like, yeah, I mean, it's still like something I would have some concerns over. We've seen he has games where he gets into foul trouble.
Yeah.
It's not ideal if he's, effectively your best defensive wing. But man, if he juices the offense
So much.
so well, and the flip side is like I just look at with Andre. I mean, first off, like the Knicks game, like what did he do defensively in the Knicks game? Nothing. He got into foul trouble early.
Quickly.
Like at no point was he bothering Jalen Brunson, unfortunately, right? Not that AJ or anybody else
Like
did
nobody
either.
was able to
Right.
bother Brunson in that one.
But Ajax he has to be really good defensively or it's not worth it, right? So and then I think it just raises the question, like in a 7-game series against a good opponent in the playoffs, like I mean, on the one hand, like you hope that his defense will matter because you're going to be playing against better teams, right? Like he'll have someone to guard probably. But the flip side is they're going to exploit him, like they are going to make sure that, he has a hard time hiding on offense and or they'll let him hide because they're not going to pay any attention.
Right. Like it has to be dynamic enough in what he's doing defensive. Like even like Amen Thompson in Houston, where it's like the offense isn't quite there for him, but he does enough defensively where you're like, we'll keep you out here for now as you continue doing what you're doing.
Yeah. And I mean, Amen Thompson he's a great passer. Mm-hmm. He actually like uses his athleticism to like get to the rim. Yeah. I mean, like he's obviously not a weirdo in the same way that Andre is, and Amen's also like a crazy like stat or stocks guy too, like blocks and steals, which Andre doesn't really do. So yeah, I mean, to be honest, like that's my view, irrespective of the injury. But like now, potentially, like due to the injury, like I was sort of been thinking about the last like week or so. I feel like I would sort of like kind of musical chair the AJ, Ajax, Ryan Rollins kind of rotation
into that spot.
And to me, like AJ should be the starter, and Ryan Rollins, I think, has shown to be the steady, predictable. Like he does enough of everything that like his value isn't going to be like highly matchup dependent. And he's like kind of like the closest thing to a backup point guard that the Bucks have that you can trust. And so to me, Ajax becomes the like throw him out randomly when you need it for a matchup. Mm-hmm. And again, it's not like he's playing a lot of minutes anyway, right?
Right. He's starting the game, but not playing many minutes.
Yeah. So to me, like Ajax is more of like the Ryan Rollins type. Oh crap, we need somebody to defend like randomly to start a fourth quarter, right? Which we've seen Doc do with Ryan Rollins. Or crap, our energy is bad tonight. Like we got to do something. Halliburton's killing us, or whatever it might be. Throw in Andre Jackson Jr. in those situations rather than like just always defaulting to have him out there, which, again, not that the data is everything, but again, they've been winning games since he went to the starting five. That's the kind of a bit of the contradiction. Like the team has been very successful, once he started starting, and also AJ started playing at the same time, right? When they kind of
getting into the rotations.
Exactly. They kind of demoted Gary Trent and Pat Connaughton, and they brought those two young guys in the rotation. So overall, the team's played much better. But like you look at the data, it's like, well, the Bucks aren't like winning those Andre minutes or the starting minutes, at least in any real significant way. So yeah, I'm just sort of repeating myself at this point, as I often do, Camille, but let's see what AJ Green can do. They may not have the option of Ajax here in the next game. We'll see. Hopefully, you obviously would rather make that decision by choice rather than because of injury. But I think the Bucks are really well suited to, bumping AJ into the starting five. He's been closing most games anyway over Ajax. And then honestly, it's like Gary Trent is a guy that hopefully he'll get healthy soon. Like I think Gary Trent has earned more minutes. Ryan Rollins has earned more minutes. Like, if only one of these guys is missing, I think you can pretty easily paper over that, right? They've had
to spread those minutes out.
Yeah, they've had 10 guys for a 9-man rotation basically, and even like Pat Connaughton has like
he's been all right in his spot.
Perfectly fine, So yeah, I mean, I think from a depth standpoint, the Bucks are in probably about as good a place as you could have hoped for. Even with some of the up and down play overall and the record maybe not being where you want it to be.
Agreed with that. Well, up next for the Bucks as they continue this homestand, the Raptors, who just beat the Celtics tonight. at home in Toronto after beating Golden State. So the Raptors are coming to Milwaukee on a little 2-game win streak of their own. So hopefully the Bucks can keep their win streak going against the Raptors. We'll be back with more Locked On Bucks tomorrow. So make sure you remain locked in as well. For Frank and myself, we'll catch you later.